Mr. Paul Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's a very, very great pleasure to be here today. It's been quite a week, or a couple of weeks, for the town of Blackpool. Not least did they elect me as a Member of Parliament, but we now also have the delight of playing in the Premiership next season. Yeah. Not just against Wolverhampton Wanderers, who is just leaving now, but many other teams that I'm sure we all support. Now, I was thinking, actually, of wearing a tangerine tie, because that is, of course, our club colours, but I did feel that might just push the politics of coalition that bit too far, because I do not own such a thing. It was with great pleasure on election night in my acceptance speech that I paid tribute to Joan Humble. It was no problem for me at all, and I'm delighted to do so again. She was always courteous, unfailingly polite and gracious. I know she is remembered with affection on all sides of the House. She was an excellent member of the Work and Pension Select Committee, and more importantly, in my view, was the work she did with the all-party group on non-combat deaths in the military, particularly in the aftermath of the Deep Cut inquiry. And her work on that committee demonstrated to me just what you can achieve as a backbencher. And it's a useful lesson to all of us newer members that you don't need to hanker after ministerial office to achieve in this House. Joan was, of course, the member for Blackpool North and Fleetwood. And there are people out there beyond this chamber who take great interest in the nomenclature that attaches to constituencies. And Cleveleys, because I'm the MP for Blackpool North and Cleveleys is a debutante to having a constituency named after it. It's an interesting town, partly because it doesn't really exist. There's another group of anoraks out there who know all about postcodes. They are obsessed with postal towns and where they are attached to. And Cleveleys is actually part of what's called Thornton Cleveleys. No one is quite sure where Thornton stops and Cleveleys starts, or where the two merge. But Cleveleys itself does have a very distinct identity. It's very attractive to day trippers from across the northwest and beyond, as far south as Stoke. But it has a number of challenges, and I'll just highlight one today that affects the education and health sphere, and that is long-term care for the elderly and long-term medical conditions. At the time of the last census, the Blackpool North and Fleetwood constituency had the highest number of people living in a household where somebody had a long-term medical condition, some 42%. So I urge my front bench to bear in mind that what matters in healthcare isn't just what occurs in an acute hospital. It isn't just about what you can measure, what you can put on a website as an indicator. It is about things such as quality, and perhaps most importantly, a word I never hear often enough in political discourse: dignity. You cannot measure a patient's dignity, but you know when they have lost it. And I would urge once again my front bench to put dignity at the heart of all they do in healthcare. Now, I pay tribute to Cleveleys first because I would hate for it to feel overshadowed by its big brother to the south, Blackpool. I'm sure you all know Blackpool. I'm sure many of you have propped up the bar in the Imperial Hotel in my constituency at many a conference. Everybody loves Blackpool. But I wonder whether you know much about the real Blackpool, the Blackpool behind the headlines. There are some very, very, very deprived parts of my constituency, and there are some real public health issues that we have to deal with as a government. And it is a great satisfaction to me that as a party, the Conservatives, 7 years ago almost now, started working on improving public health policy. And I pay tribute to the Secretary of State's work that he has done in delivering a very excellent public health document whilst in opposition. I hope we can build on that. The other key issue that affects Blackpool, in my view, or the parts of Blackpool that I represent, is the issue of educational aspiration. We have, sadly, some fairly underperforming schools who still have national challenge status. It is not easy running an education system in Blackpool. Deprivation does not make for easy pupils, I have to say. And the staff in Blackpool do a tremendous job. And yes, results are slowly beginning to improve. But there is a poverty of aspiration, I believe, within the town. Too many generations have not felt that education had any purpose for them, that there was any point in investing time in their studies, that they could then build life for themselves. And I feel passionately as a new member that I want to introduce, or try to reintroduce, that culture of aspiration. because educational aspiration matters to me personally. As far as we can tell, I am the first Member of Parliament elected who actually attended a special school. And I will particularly ask the front bench to pay special attention to the needs of special schools, because they do matter. Because without me going to that special school for the first few years of my education, I would not have been able to transfer to mainstream education. Without the speech therapy I got at primary school, I might not be able to stand here today and be able to make a speech. So special needs education does matter. And once again, as far as we can tell, I'm also the first Member of Parliament to be elected who has cerebral palsy. Now, I don't claim that that marks me out as anything special at all. I have never let it define my politics. Those who know me know that my interests are wide-ranging and far-reaching, and I will not let it define what I do in this chamber, certainly not. I certainly don't see myself as a role model for anyone. I have too many frailties, weaknesses, imperfections for that. I am but a weak and humble man after all. Nonetheless, I am aware, or at least I hope I can, be a role model to the very many people out there who might feel that they want to play a role in public life, but maybe don't quite have the confidence. Because I know from my experience that you need a bit of courage, yes, a bit of self-deprecation, yes, the humility to accept that, sadly, yes, the bar still is that bit higher for some of us. I found it during my campaign where my cerebral palsy was used against me by some. And yes, it did surprise me, it did shock me. But then, when I picked up The Economist on the 29th of April and read in an article about Arnold Schwarzenegger's budget crisis in California, that people with cerebral palsy and epilepsy, the combination I have, had, and I quote, mental disabilities. If a publication as august as The Economist can't get it right, it shows there's an awful lot of work to do. Just last week, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of Lord Morris's Act that introduced the basic concept of rights for disabled people, an act without which I certainly would not be here in the public sphere today, and I pay tribute to that. But it is abundantly clear to me that no matter how much you legislate, no matter how many laws you pass, you cannot legislate for what occurs in people's minds. And what I hope to do by my presence in the House over the coming years is not so much by what I say, but by the very fact of being here, that I can challenge some of the misconceptions, the prejudices, the fears and the suspicions that go with my conditions. Thank you very much. Yeah.